Waiver Wire Editions Week 7. We're already in Week 7. We're officially in the middle of the fantasy football season. Halloween on the horizon. Thanksgiving not that far after that. And we got to get right with the players you need to add this week for your fantasy football team. And we got to talk about the bye weeks. This week is a fairly easy one for bye weeks. We've got an important team on byes. We need the Dallas Cowboys to go get right during the bye week because they got absolutely smoked against the Detroit Lions. We would love to see them come back and have like CeeDee Lamb go nuts like he did last year post bye week. You've also got the Chicago Bears on a bye week. So that one, that's a team really on the rise. 4-2. Caleb Williams, back-to-back strong performances. DeAndre Swift playing very, very well. When they come back, they've got a really, really fun game in Week 8. That's going to be Caleb Williams against Jaden Daniels, Chicago, Washington. That game's going to be a lot of fun. And then Week 8, we actually have no teams on bye weeks. Then Week 9, you get Pittsburgh and San Francisco. So, we're going to deal with some really tough bye weeks. But these next 3 weeks, this is like time for you to get wins. This is not like, oh, I'm missing this guy on a bye week. This is like, no, you need to sweep it. Week 7, Week 8, Week 9, this is when we start making our playoff push. And on this show, every single week, I'm talking about players that are rostered in 30% of leagues or fewer. I'm looking at lesser rostered players, options that you need that can help your team even in the deepest and most competitive leagues. So for me, I'm not really concentrating on those guys that are available in 55% of leagues. If you want a show that does that, there's plenty of them out there. But I don't think those kind of shows and articles help me. They don't help me at all, and I'm sure they don't help you at all. If you're watching a show like this, you need help because your league is competitive. There's not that many guys on the wire, and we're looking to get it. We're also going to talk about a couple of players who are available in a little bit larger leagues. We call those the shallow league ads. And just because the guy's a shallow league ad doesn't mean that they would make my top 10 overall. I'm also going to drop my top 10 overall at the end of the show. And this is a really, really deep week for the waiver wire. I didn't necessarily think this is going to be Week 7, this many names, but we've had a number of running backs get hurt. We've had a number of running backs step forward. We have a lot of youth at the running back position that's starting to emerge. You also have some opportunities at wide receiver. So this is a great week if you need running backs, you need wide receivers. There's an exciting quarterback option. This is a week you want to be active on the waiver wire. Even if you don't need immediate starter help, this is the week you really, really clean up your bench. So make a big push. This is one of the more fun weeks we've had so far. And let's talk about our shallow league additions. These players are rostered in a little bit more than would qualify for our top 10 overall. So these are players rostered in 30 to 40% of leagues. Let's talk about JuJu Smith-Schuster. He would have been a top 10 overall addition if he was rostered in fewer leagues. So JuJu's available in 67% of leagues, would have been a top 10 addition, had 7 catches for 130 yards in Week 5 against New Orleans. This is a player that I think can return wide receiver 3 numbers rest of the way. JuJu's only 27. I know he was awful in New England last year. He looked cooked, but playing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid has a way of rejuvenating you. These Chiefs are going to be using JuJu and Kareem Hunt a lot this week. It's a wild times over there in Kansas City. Jalen Tolbert. Dallas got smoked, but Jalen Tolbert, he's still available in 65% of leagues. He's a really good one to watch. A lot of times people will cut players on buys. Jalen Tolbert, if he gets cut in your league, I would add him. He looked very good. He scored 13 or more PPR points in 3 out of the last 5 weeks. We have Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs caught 2 touchdowns. This was like a get-right game for Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs also, you have Dontavian Wicks now banged up. We want access to the Green Bay offense. Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is targeted 22 times and caught 14 of them over the past 2 weeks. He's on the streaming radar if Malik Neighbors is not cleared. Malik Neighbors missed 2 weeks in a row with concussion symptoms. So that's a little bit unusual. I would imagine he plays this week. I would actually be very surprised if he doesn't. But in any week that Malik Neighbors doesn't play, Darius Slayton is a consideration because of his target volume. So of those four, JuJu is the one I'd be most excited about. Also, for you super flex managers, Matt Stafford might have been cut during his bye week. And Matt Stafford has really done nothing this year fantasy-wise, but he gets back Cooper Kupp, and the Rams' schedule eases up a little bit over the next few weeks. So he gets back Kupp, the schedule gets a little easier, maybe gets back Puka Nacua, and it's a player maybe you're excited you added, or at least like kind of happy, not necessarily excited, that you added to your team with this bye week. So those are the shallow league ads. Let's talk about the players that are rostered in 30% of leagues or fewer. So all of these players are going to be available to you in 70% of leagues. And let's start at the quarterback position. The quarterback position, there's one big name to add this week. And this is a player where I got a lot of flack for including him for multiple weeks in our Waiver Wire column that I write at Player Profiler, and also here on Waiver Wired. For weeks, I kind of talked about Drake Maye. Add Drake Maye as a speculation play. This is a guy that could help you down the line. He's got upside in fantasy, and some people really, really pushed back on this one. They thought it was a terrible recommendation. I don't know why. There was a lot of anti-Drake Maye out there. I think it's also an anti-New England Patriots, which we understood at the time. But this is a sign of life for the offense and a sign of life that Drake Maye is going to put up numbers this year. The Patriots were steamrolled by Houston, but Maye showed us why they took him as a top 3 overall selection, and he showed why people were excited about his potential in fantasy. Yes, the turnovers were bad. Maye had 2 picks. He also fumbled, but the touchdown passes were much better. He had 3 touchdown passes. He also had a 40-yard beauty to Kayshon Boutte. So, like, he finds Boutte, he finds Demario Douglas, he finds Hunter Henry, 3 touchdown passes. But what's under the radar about Drake Maye right now is he had 38 rushing yards, which is like, what is that? It's not that much, but it is a floor, and it also led New England in rushing. So Drake Maye leads them in rushing yardage, and he also has 3 touchdown passes. He is big, he is athletic, he has rushing ability, and he's got a strong arm. These things bode well for fantasy. And a lot of you will push back and say, Theo, a lot of this was in garbage time. A lot of this was when the Patriots were down big. But this team is not good. There's going to be plenty of situations where Drake Maye is in comeback mode, and we love that for fantasy football. So Drake Maye is our number 1 ad at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones. Jones had a poor game. Missed Malik Neighbors. Huge letdown game for the Giants. 17-7 home loss to Cincinnati. This is actually a letdown game for fantasy football. Tyrone Tracy, who we told you to add for weeks and weeks and weeks, Tyrone Tracy looked fantastic. I hope he takes that job. That would be a good one for us because a lot of you I know added him. I have a ton of Tyrone Tracy across Dynasty and Redraft. So that was great. But everything else for the Giants, not great. Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson both had double-digit targets, but the Giants couldn't do anything. 17-7 home loss. Very disappointing game. But Daniel Jones, he's quarterback 19 on the year. There's nothing special about him right now, but he is a locked-in super flex starter for you. And when he gets back Malik Neighbors, that's a huge, huge, huge life preserver for his fantasy value. So I think Daniel Jones can legitimately finish as a mid QB2, which is where he's at. He's going to have some helpful weeks to you. So, like, again, if he gets cut, he's a consideration for you for depth. Bo Nix. Bo Nix is showing signs of life. This is one I didn't necessarily think I would talk about. Bo Nix looked awful to start out the season, but now he's a super flex consideration for you. 200 passing yards, 2 touchdown passes in back-to-back games. Also showed his rushing upside. He had 61 rushing yards, which was a season high this past week. Now he goes to New Orleans, and they play a Saints team that suddenly looks very, very beatable and is trending downwards. Denver has won 3 out of 4 games. Super flex managers, Bo Nix, you're feeling a lot better about him than you did to start the year when he was pretty terrible. Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson couldn't go again. Joe Flacco, available, of course, in 93% of leagues. He had a season-low completion percentage, but he still had 2 touchdown passes. So I know I used him in a super flex league and I won the week. I got just enough out of him. And I'm sure a lot of you were in the same boat, maybe expecting more, but you got just enough out of him. So Joe Flacco, if Anthony Richardson misses another week, then he's back in our super flex lineups. He's done just enough to do that. Then deeper considerations for super flex, Andy Dalton available in 90% of leagues, Spencer Rattler available in 96. Rattler was not a disaster fantasy-wise. Like, he did some things. He showed mobility. He had a touchdown pass. He had over 240 passing yards. Super flex leagues only for those two. Don't even consider them if you're in a single QB league. You find something else out there. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go over one of the most important running back weeks you've had this season on the waiver wire. We're also going to talk about one of the more interesting wide receiver weeks you've had on the waiver wire this year. We'll be right back.
Hey, I know it's a popular statistic to cite, these underdog pick'ems, the vast majority of people go more than on any given player. Yeah, close to 80% of people, but that's because it's easier to find the shootouts than it is to find the dud games every Sunday afternoon. Like, we knew week 5, Ravens-Bengals was going to be a shootout. And there goes Lamar Jackson for 4 touchdowns. There goes Joe Burrow for 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry gets there. Zay Flowers is over 100 yards. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both got there, as well as Chase Brown. Both Chases got there. You go more than, you 100x your payout on Underdog with their Pick 6 contest. But then you look at Dolphins Patriots, that's going down the toilet, right? Too bad Ramondre Stevenson at 18 fantasy points. But you improve your chances at positive returns when you correlate with these Underdog pick'ems. Use promo code Underworld. This is the biggest bonus Underdog has ever given out, up to $125. Promo code is Underworld. Put in $250, you get $125. Now go start picking.
Welcome back to Waiver Wired. I am Theo Gremminger. If you're enjoying this, make sure you check out Sleepers, Streamers, and Stashes. I drop that at the end of the week, giving you all of your sleepers to pick up, stash on your bench, and also players to stream. Check that one out. Let's talk about the running back position. And wow, there's a lot of names this week. So bear with me here. This is a really fun one. Tyler Allgeier. He's available in 70% of leagues. No-brainer addition. Tyler Allgeier makes my top 10. He's way up there towards the top. Atlanta's offense is rolling. And Allgeier is a significant part of the weekly game plan. They sort of have capped Bijan Robinson's touches this year. So Bijan gets you the 2 early touchdowns. And instead of it being like the dream game for Bijan Robinson, they sort of keep the volume manageable. I don't know if it's a workload thing with Bijan. I don't know if they like rotating backs. It seems that way, but any way you cut it, even with Bijan getting 2 super early touchdowns, Allgeier still gets 105 rushing yards and a touchdown. And he had 80 combined yards in week 4. So if Bijan were to go down, Allgeier would be a weekly RB1 because of the quality of the offense. Allgeier, like a couple of weeks back, when we talked about him on the waiver wire, we say Allgeier would have been like a locked-in RB2 if Bijan went down. But I think the way that Atlanta is trending upwards and they're scoring points every week, the passing game is rolling, Allgeier, I think, would be considered a low-end RB1. So he is a very valuable player to have for you as a contingent play. And also when we get to the really choppy weeks with a lot of players on bye, Allgeier can be used as a flex play, as an RB2 play based on his volume. Ty Chandler, available in 72% of leagues. We had Ty Chandler very high up there last week in our top 10 overall additions because of what we're looking at with Aaron Jones. It looks like Aaron Jones is going to miss this week. Now, how long Aaron Jones will be out, that's up in the air. It's a hip injury. So it's not like a knee. It's a little funny. Like, we don't know the severity. He's not on the injured reserve. But regardless of the extent of the injury, we want to be aggressive when we add Ty Chandler. So this is a very good offense. One of the offenses that we're able to sort of lean on fantasy-wise. The Jets game notwithstanding, that was a tough one in London. But other than that, we've seen a lot of big-time performances from this. So like Ty Chandler this week will be like sort of a mid RB2 because of the quality of the offense and because of his two-way ability. We also don't have the pressure on him, like behind him. You have Myles Gaskin behind him. So you have sort of not like an exciting RB3 option where we're like, oh, they're really going to work in Myles Gaskin. Like, no, I think Myles Gaskin is going to be just a change of pace, and there's going to be a lot of volume for Ty Chandler. And let's talk about Aaron Jones, because Aaron Jones, again, he's been fantastic. Aaron Jones was fantastic in the NFL playoffs, and his role is terrific in the offense. Then let's talk about something else with Aaron Jones. He played 12 games last year, and he's 29 years old. So having Ty Chandler matters. He is a big addition for you this week. Let's talk about Isaac Guerendo. I'm going to be aggressive on Isaac Guerendo, adding him this week in leagues he's available. There are other waiver wire columns out there pouring cold water on this, and they're not that excited about Isaac Guerendo. But we've seen Jordan Mason banged up. Jordan Mason was able to come back into the game, and then he played one play where he injured his shoulder or something like that, and then he left the game. So Jordan Mason is banged up. We also don't have a sample size on Jordan Mason long term. So Jordan Mason's not some guy we've been like, oh, all these years, Jordan Mason's been able to bounce back. Like, we don't know how well he's been able to bounce back. You also have the fact that Isaac Guerendo is a ridiculous athlete. And is he a limited player? Sure, absolutely. Would he get a Jordan Mason-like workload if Jordan Mason happened to miss a week? No. You'd see Kyle Juszczyk working in on some passing downs. You'd see Patrick Taylor working in. But at the end of the day, Guerendo's the one with the juice and the speed. Remember Raheem Mostert in this offense. And I don't think Guerendo's that level. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying some of the things they can do stylistically that work for us as fantasy managers. We're not trying to find the most well-rounded back who is like hitting the hole appropriately and doing everything football-wise. We're looking for guys who can score fantasy points. And Isaac Guerendo, with his speed in the Kyle Shanahan offense, with guys like Debo and George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Brock Purdy cooking, Isaac Guerendo, if there's no Jordan Mason, is going to be in our lineups. Even if he's a boom-bust guy, even if his floor is like RB3, like, he can do it. We saw a 76-yard run. Like, that was a guy who runs this fast. He had one of the highest speed scores in the history of the combine. That's weight-adjusted 40. So he's a 4.33 40 at that size is unique. So Isaac Guerendo, I want to be aggressive with this week. I will have him a little bit higher than some. Let's talk about Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is another guy where people are all over the place. He's available in 99% of leagues. Tucker was electric, played 27 snaps, finished with 192 combined yards and 2 touchdowns on only 17 touches. He sort of took the shine away from Bucky Irving, and Bucky Irving was a baller. Like, Bucky Irving had 105 yards and a touchdown. So, like, Bucky Irving was a guy that we've been kind of like pounding the table to add since week 1. We had him up very, very highly in week 1. Bucky Irving looked great. Like, don't let this take away from Bucky. But Rachaad White could miss more games. I've seen it rumored that Rachaad White could miss like until week 9. So Bucky Irving in like the prominent role with Sean Tucker working in like 1/3 of the time. If Bucky Irving misses time, now Sean Tucker is the next man in, and we've seen Sean Tucker be very successful in this offense. Also, for the people saying, Sean Tucker, this was a one-off, you know, this doesn't mean anything because Rachaad White was out and he's playing behind Bucky, and look at his snap share. I mean, the Tampa Bay coaching staff, they have eyes as well. And when you see a player play like this, it's sort of hard to say, hey, Sean, just go sit on the bench. We're good. Thanks for giving us that 192 combined yard performance against NFC South opponent in the Saints. We're done. We'll see you like in training camp next year. No, I think if anything, this opens up their eyes that he's a player that could get another opportunity. So we already see Rachaad White banged up. Sean Tucker performed extremely well. This was a very talented player at Syracuse. He was only an undrafted free agent because of injury concerns. He probably would have been like a 3rd-round pick had he been fully healthy. So Sean Tucker, he's going to be an ad for us this week. Jaylen Wright, available in 91% of leagues. He was in our top 10 overall last week, and I want to sneak him in this week as well. It looks like Devaughn Achane is going to potentially miss this week, but potentially play. It sounds to me like he most likely plays, but it's not like a lock that he plays. He's had a concussion heading into the bye week, so he's had a time to get ready. He's also been slightly banged up. We've seen Raheem Mostert already miss games this season. Jaylen Wright showed us everything we need from him in that win over New England. He had over 80 rushing yards. He looked big, explosive, and fast. And that's sort of why they drafted him. So Jaylen Wright is a contingent upside play if Devon Achane breaks down or if Raheem Mostert breaks down. We also get the bailout where Tua Tagovailoa will return at some point. Kimani Vidal. Kimani Vidal makes my top 10 overall. I think you should be aggressive adding Kimani Vidal. Like the things I talked about with Isaac Guerrero, you could easily be more enthusiastic about Kimani Vidal with your fab this week. Like, this is a personal preference. Vidal stepped into the Gus Edwards role, which is not something we should like brush away. Gus Edwards was not producing, but Gus Edwards averaged 9.5 carries a game. So Gus Edwards goes to the IR. The Chargers come back from a bye week, and Kimani Vidal is immediately involved. He only had 6 touches, but one of them was a touchdown catch. He's an explosive two-way back with juice. We also see J.K. Dobbins taking on an alpha like RB1 bell cow type usage. So J.K. Dobbins is getting the rock as much as he can handle. And if you had J.K. Dobbins, you're feeling fantastic. But at the same time, we've seen J.K. Dobbins break down in multiple seasons. Maybe he doesn't this year. But Kimani Vidal showed that if J.K. Dobbins were to go down, based on the volume the running backs are getting in this offense, based on Kimani Vidal's two-way ability, he might be like an RB1 if we had J.K. Dobbins miss some weeks. So let's be aggressive with Kimani Vidal. Let's put him in our top 10 overall. Roschon Johnson, available in 74% of leagues. A lot of people will drop him during the bye week. He had a poor game, and DeAndre Swift is balling, and you have to hold through the bye week. The Chicago offense is trending up. DeAndre Swift is playing very, very well, but there's a great deal of contingent upside with Roschon Johnson. Certain people on this channel love Roschon Johnson, but Roschon Johnson is a contingent play behind DeAndre Swift, but there's still value in that because Roschon Johnson can catch passes. So if you have the space, add him this week. Same thing with Justice Hill. Justice Hill, a couple weeks back, looked sort of like a handcuff plus. Now he looks like a contingent upside play where if Derrick Henry were to go down, Justice Hill would have a role. He's available in 75% of leagues right now. Trey Benson, this is one where I didn't include him in the top 10, but I want you to roster him as many places as possible. He's starting to see some work. He had 9 rushes in week 4. He had 5 rushes in week 6, both in losses. If James Conner misses some time, or when James Conner misses some time, Benson would be a valuable player to have in your roster. Conner's dealing with some sort of ankle thing. I don't think it's going to hold him out this week, but it's some sort of like little knock. And once the injury bug sort of opens up for James Conner, then James Conner, that's a guy who's missed time throughout his career, like almost every single season. And if you're in a deeper format and Trey Benson is rostered, then like if you're in FFPC, NFFC, like 20-man roster leagues, Amari DiMercato, if you roster James Conner, or if you're just looking for a guy that's going to cost you nothing, DiMercato would be in some sort of split with Benson. It would be Benson the more valuable back. This is sort of like a Ray Davis, Ty Johnson argument where there's going to be people saying, look at Amari DiMercato's box score. But no, if the back and front goes down, it doesn't mean the guy who's getting more snaps necessarily takes the role. It's Amari DiMercato. Think of him as the Ty Johnson. Think of Trey Benson as their Ray Davis, if you want like an analogy. That was actually pretty much on point. So that's a good one right there. Let's talk about Blake Corum. Blake Corum, available in 85% of leagues. This is a player that went into the bye week. He passed Ronnie Rivers by, which was significant. It was weird to see Ronnie Rivers ahead of Blake Corum. Blake Corum is not a threat to Kyren Williams. That narrative has sailed. Kyren Williams is the number one back in this offense, not even close. But if Kyren Williams were to miss time, Blake Corum would be like an RB1 because of the quality of the Sean McVay running back. Sean McVay is able to get running back production out of, I mean, not anyone, but Sean McVay is able to coax RB1 production out of multiple backs throughout his career. And this is why they drafted Blake Corum. Blake Corum, they took him in the 3rd round out of Michigan, mega producer in college. And if he had the opportunity, then he would be a huge value play for you. So I'd be aggressive adding Corum where you can, especially in a week where there's people paying for the box scores, paying for the stats. Green Bay, Emanuel WIlson, available in 88% of leagues. Marshawn Lloyd, available in 95% of leagues. If you're looking for a next man in, Emanuel WIlson, if Josh Jacobs were to go down tomorrow, would immediately become the starter. But if Josh Jacobs were to go down, I think when Marshawn Lloyd returned from the IR, it would be similar to like a Kimani Vidal situation where we saw Kimani Vidal miss some time. Then we saw Kimani Vidal come back after the bye, and we saw what a two-way ability explosive back looks like. That's sort of the Marshawn Lloyd here. He's a cleaner prospect than Emanuel WIlson. This is a guy they took in the third round. You know I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lloyd if you watch my Dynasty content or my 2024 rookie content that I put out last year. I love Marshawn Lloyd. He's like a stash for you. Injured now, but maybe end of the season makes a dent. And we want Packers. Like Jordan Love is awesome. Tyler Goodson, available in 96% of leagues. Goodson led the Colts in running back production. He also dominated the RB targets. So like it looks like Goodson is the one to roster over Trey Sermon based on the quality of play that Goodson has had on the field. And this week, if Jonathan Taylor misses, Tyler Goodson is a player you can stream in your RB2 or your flex spot. Not a great play, but a guy who you know has a floor baked in. He's had 57 and 65 yards from scrimmage over the past 2 games, and he can catch the ball. So Tyler Goodson looks like the back over Trey Sermon. If you added Trey Sermon, you can't be too upset because Trey Sermon gave you that one really, really good week. But now it looks like Tyler Goodson is the back you want in Indianapolis. Talking about Ray Davis. And I'm recording this early morning, Monday morning. And a big shout out to Verizon Fios on Long Island for having all these issues yesterday, causing me to have to re-record this one. That was really cool, Verizon Fios. But I get to talk about the Ray Davis game. I get to talk about Monday Night Football. Usually I'm recording this before Monday Night Football, but Ray Davis looked awesome. We had Ray Davis as a top 10 ad earlier in the year. Lately, it's been sort of a arguments for Ty Johnson, but we stayed firm. In my Dynasty article over at Fantasy Points last week, I recommended Ray Davis as a player to trade for, sort of chasing for the next Tyrone Tracy. So that was a nice one. But Ray Davis looked awesome. Like Ray Davis did exactly what you want besides score a touchdown. He had 23 touches for 142 combined yards. He caught passes. He showed exactly why he's a like-for-like replacement for James Cook. This is what we talk about with these handcuff running backs. We love like-for-like replacements. Ray Davis, due to his quality of his play and due to the fact that he might have another start, absolutely makes our top 10 now. And Ty Johnson, it's not a guy that if you're in a 20-man league, you need to cut. He still has value because James Cook is banged up. We see the running back production there. It's Ray Davis is the way more valuable one to roster. But now if Ray Davis gets banged up, we realize Ty Johnson would have a path. Let's talk about Dearness Johnson. If Travis Etienne is considered out or goes to the IR, like Etienne's banged up, then Dearness Johnson will slot in behind Tank Bigsby. But this is Tank Bigsby's backfield. I know that people are saying like they went with this hot hand approach in London last week, but we've seen Tank Bigsby do it for multiple weeks. If Etienne was out, Tank Bigsby's an RB2, and Dearness Johnson is in like a much lesser Tank Bigsby role. Ugly situation in Jacksonville. They play New England this week. If New England beats them in London, Doug Peterson's done. And I think, honestly, if they weren't playing back-to-back weeks in London, he might have been fired last week. That's how bad they looked against Chicago. Cleveland situation. Jerome Ford is injured. Now you've got Deonta Foreman, who had 12 touches. Another awful, awful offense. But touches are touches. If you're in a really deep format, Deonta Foreman might see a larger a role next week, especially if Nick Chubb is not like up to speed. So if Nick Chubb is back and he can handle volume, I think you'll see Nick Chubb attempt to like rescue the day in Cleveland because they're sticking with Deshaun Watson. Maybe they think Nick Chubb is going to rescue them. I don't know. It looks really bad there. The offensive line is awful. Pierre Strong also, if you're in a deep format, if you want to throw a dart at a bad situation. And an interesting player, let's talk about a couple of sneaky ads, really deep ads right here, deep cuts for you people looking for just a hidden gem, a player you can just add for nothing. Audric Estime is now healthy in Denver. Led Notre Dame in everything for the last couple of years. He had the most rushing touchdowns in a single season in Notre Dame history last year. Think about that one. We've watched Braylon Allen. Audric Estime is sort of like a Braylon Allen light. He's a big, young back with juice. So Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin combined to do absolutely nothing against the LA Chargers. Don't be surprised if we see some Audric Estime in the second half of the season. Add him now as a stash, and we'll see where this thing goes. This is a dollar bid, $0 bid. Don't go crazy with this one, but Jaleel and Javonte are not doing it. Audric Estime might have the most juice in that entire backfield. We'll find out soon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, speculative addition, available in 91% of leagues. We've seen Kareem Hunt and JuJu Smith-Schuster like turn back the clock. Could we see CEH involved in week 7? Speculative addition. Let's find out. Keaton Mitchell, available in 99% of leagues. Sneaky way to gain entry into the Baltimore backfield. He is returning from injury soon. And we've seen how effective the Baltimore Ravens are this year. This is an interesting one because I think there's a based on like Justice Hill, his receiving ability, I don't think would go away. But there's a chance that if Derrick Henry missed time, and don't miss any time, Derrick Henry, you look like the league winner. But if Derrick Henry missed some time, he is 30 years old. Keaton Mitchell might be a really interesting player. Like anybody who followed these waiver wire columns last year and my sleepers, like we had a couple weeks where Keaton Mitchell really hit for us last year. So we'll see. So that's all the running backs. I think we covered them all. That was wild. Hopefully not as many running backs to cover next week, but make sure you're active adding running backs this week. Wide receivers. My favorite addition at wide receiver this week, Demario Douglas, available in 93% of leagues. We've been waiting for Jalen Polk, and I'm just not going to talk about him. Maybe ignoring Jalen Polk is going to be the motivation we need to get him involved, but Demario Douglas is the guy. I should have been talking about Demario Douglas. It just seemed like he was sort of a boring ad when we didn't have Drake Maye and New England was not scoring. But Demario Douglas, this is a good one, has had 9 or more targets in 3 out of the last 4 games. 9 or more targets in 3 out of the last 4 games. Scored 21.8 PPR points in Drake Maye's first game. That is a big positive sign. Demario Douglas can be streamed against Jacksonville. He's like a wide receiver 3 now, moving forward. Go at him if you need a wide receiver. Don't expect too many spike weeks, but he is a very locked-in wide receiver 3 floor play who's trending up with Drake Maye. Jordan Whittington. I'm going to maintain my belief that Jordan Whittington has done enough to have carved out a role moving forward. He's not going to be the number 1 target earner. That's going to go right back to Cooper Kupp. But I think Whittington has earned like the not the Puka Nacua role, but like the number 2 target opposite Cooper Kupp role. Whittington had 18 targets in LA's last 2 games, 13 catches. And against Green Bay in week 5, he had 10 targets and 8 receptions. Michael Wilson makes my top 10 overall. He's available in 84% of leagues. Michael Wilson made my top 10 last week, and he made a top 10 earlier in the year. So I like Michael Wilson. I've always sort of liked him. He was a 3rd-round pick out of Stanford, was a Senior Bowl standout. And now he's got a situation where Marvin Harrison Jr. is concussed. So Michael Wilson becomes an interesting streaming option this week. I think he's a wide receiver 3 this week. And moving forward, he's probably a wide receiver 4. So he's either scored a touchdown or had at least 60 receiving yards in 3 out of the last 4 games for Arizona. Wilson is going to see a larger than normal role this week. And he caught a touchdown last week. So there's a lot to like about Michael Wilson. Look for him to be heavily targeted with Marvin Harrison Jr. potentially missing. Devaughn Vele, available in 100% of leagues. So this is like the Devaughn Vele story. Devaughn Vele, I had him in my preseason waiver wire article and video. Nobody else had him across fantasy in that one. People were like, what are you doing, Theo? And I'm like, okay, Devaughn Vele, let's see. Then Devaughn Vele catches 8 passes in Denver's opening loss. And all these people were like giving me shout outs. And I got a couple people in my DMs saying like, Great job with Devaughn Vele. I'm like, okay, cool. This is, we like big slot receivers who have immediate usage. It's not rocket science out here. We're looking for available targets. So then Devaughn Vele, he goes from catching 8 passes to getting injured. So that sort of went away. Then we see Devaughn Vele come back last week, and Devaughn Vele has 4 catches for 78 yards. So in a bad offense, Devaughn Vele now has 11 plus PPR points in 2 games played this year. He's averaging double-digit PPR points. He's on the radar this week. I don't think we can completely ignore Devaughn Vele and how much Bo Nix likes passing the ball to him and his ability to get open. So Devaughn Vele is old. This is not like some young 20-year-old breakthrough. He's like 25 years old, and he's a rookie. But he is involved in this offense, and he has 2 games played, double-digit points in both games, and he's still going to fly under the radar this week. Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette, we talked about him last week as a player to add if somebody cut him. And this is why it's so important that you're looking at context and not looking at box scores, because Xavier Legette has 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown in week 4. Then in week 5, does nothing. And people are like, what's going on? I'm going to cut him. This is a 1-week wonder. But then it's because Xavier Legette was banged up in week 5. So you saw guys like Jalen Coker stepping up. Then last week, we see Xavier Legette back at it, and he catches another touchdown. He didn't have a huge stat line, but basically in back-to-back weeks, we've seen Xavier Legette have a touchdown catch. This is a first-round pick. This is a super athletic A.J. Brown-sized player on the outside, and he's had essentially back-to-back touchdown catches. Add him if he's available in your league. He's available in 81% of leagues right now. Rashad Bateman, available in 89% of leagues. We're starting to see some promising weeks for Bateman. The inconsistency at the tight end position in Baltimore, I know Mark Andrews caught a touchdown. I know we saw a little more out of Likely, but the inconsistency at tight end, where we don't have a mega target earner, has opened things up. We've seen Zay Flowers turn into a PPR machine, at least this past week against Washington, looked fantastic. But Bateman had 4 catches for 71 yards, really positive. And his snaps were almost identical to Zay Flowers. So Bateman gets 4 catches, 71 yards. The week before, he had 4 catches, 58 yards. And he found the end zone against last week. So Bateman is trending up. If you need wide receiver depth, he's an interesting one. And he might be one that we can throw into the flex or the wide receiver 3 spot during bye weeks because of just how terrific Lamar Jackson and this offense looks. Let's talk about Bub Means. Bub Means this is one where we need to monitor the Rashid Shaheed situation because Bub Means is stepping into the Chris Olave position. Olave's dealing with concussion. Now we hear Rashid Shaheed is dealing with a knee injury. We don't know the severity of that. Maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. We really don't know. But Bub Means, let's talk about Bub Means, like a little history lesson. Bub Means played at multiple colleges. He was a standout at the NFL Combine. Looked good there. And his last college stop was Pitt. Means gets drafted in like the 5th round by New Orleans. And now Means has a pathway to being used in your lineup this week. He had a connection with Spencer Rattler. So it's the rookie to rookie connection. 8 targets, 5 catches, 45 receiving yards, but he also had a touchdown. So that's an interesting one. And again, they were getting blown out by Tampa, but Bub Means was still targeted 8 times and he catches a touchdown, catches 5 passes. Now we talk about Denver. And you say, well, Theo, if Rashid Shaheed is out and Chris Olave is out, you're going to see Patrick Surtain on Bub Means. Do you even know ball? I don't want to play Bub Means against Denver Broncos' nasty defense with Patrick Surtain on him, shutting him down. I'm turning this off. But Patrick Surtain is now dealing with a concussion himself. So Patrick Surtain might miss the game. And you've got Bub Means getting a lot of targets potentially this week. And he has a connection with Spencer Rattler. This is an interesting one and will go under the radar in many, many leagues because it's Bub Means and he's completely under the radar already. So if you need a sleeper wide receiver this week who's available in 100% of leagues, Bub Means. Vele, Means, these guys are available everywhere. It won't cost you anything. Tutu Atwell, available in Available in 88% of leagues. So I'm a little less optimistic about Atwell with Kupp coming back than I am Whittington. And that sounds counterintuitive because Atwell does not have a conflicting skill set with Whittington. But I'm just thinking about like raw targets and the expectation of usage. And I'm thinking that Whittington is going to continue earning some targets with Kupp as well. So Tutu Atwell, I don't think this is going to be sustainable. But if you're in a deep format, Atwell's had 3 straight weeks with 12 PPR points or more, and he leads the Rams in receiving yardage with 281. And again, I could be wrong on this. Like, my enthusiasm for Whittington might be too high. I will bet on Whittington, but I'm willing to be wrong. Atwell coming off the bye, we'll find out. Any way you cut it, Demarcus Robinson didn't step up like we thought he would in the absence of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. But Atwell did and Whittington did. So both of these guys are going to be under the radar because of Kupp's return. Talking about Noah Brown. Noah Brown is available in 99% of leagues. He's had at least 3 catches in every game he's played. And against Baltimore this week, he had 4 catches for 58 yards, and he had 8 targets. So this could be a sign of something with Noah Brown. And again, you can add him for $0. You can add him for $1. Way under the radar, but he is on the field in Washington a lot. And we love Jaden Daniels. Tight end. This one is not going to be nearly as long as we talked about a million running backs and a million wide receivers. This is the week where you concentrate on running back and wide receiver, or you get Drake Maye. Tight end, it's really nothing exciting out there, like at all. The tight end position is sort of a mess. Noah Fant, available in 73% of leagues. He had 6 catches, 63 yards, and lost to San Francisco. He's had 60 receiving yards and 6 catches in 2 out of his last 4 games. Fant has 0 touchdowns on the season, but the 2 games with the 60 receiving yards were promising. If you're in a bind, add Noah Fant. Colby Parkinson will still sort of be my favorite tight end add this week. Doesn't make the top 10, but he's had 20 targets over the past 2 games. He's a mid tight end 2 right now. But if the offense trends up with Cooper Kupp returning, Parkinson could maybe challenge for low-end tight end 1 upside, especially if he can maintain sort of like the Tyler Higbee role opposite Kupp. Grant Calcaterra. If you don't play tight end premium, ignore everything I'm going to say. But if you play tight end premium, there's some value in adding Grant Calcaterra because Dallas Goedert has a hamstring injury. So Calcaterra had 4 catches, 67 yards, and did so in sort of like a low passing volume week for Philadelphia. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are fully healthy, and Saquon's going to get all of his touches. So tight end sort of goes under the radar. But Grant Calcaterra, this is not like some exciting 22-year-old backup to Dallas Goedert. This is like a journeyman veteran. So I'm not that excited about this one. But if you're in FFPC or a league like that, sure, go ahead. Add Grant Calcaterra if you lost Dallas Goedert. Have fun. Hunter Henry, available in 74% of leagues. This one's kind of fun. Hunter Henry, if you need a streaming tight end option this week, go with Hunter Henry if he's available, because he faces off against that Jacksonville defense that was just shredded by Cole Kmet. Henry also caught a touchdown pass in Drake Maye's first game played. He finishes with 3 catches for 41 yards. So he's a touchdown or bust tight end, but I think like the 3 catches for 41 yards, like a 7 or 8 point PPR baseline with Maye, that's sort of there for Henry. And he's going to be heavily involved in this offense. I know there was sort of like the Austin Hooper hive, but I think it's Henry. Zach Ertz, 75% available, had a season high 68 receiving yards against Baltimore. Baltimore is not good defending the tight end position. They're way up there in terms of yards conceded. They're sort of a tight end funnel defense right now. Ertz had 4 catches for 68 yards. He's been targeted at least 4 times in all but 1 game this season. Jatavian Sanders, available in 99% of leagues. He's been targeted 12 times over the past 2 games. This is significant. Sanders was the first pick in the 4th round. So not a day 2 selection, but really close to a day 2 selection. Carolina took him very early on in the 4th round, and we're starting to see why. He has, again, 12 targets over the last 2 games, even with the game flow for Carolina being like perfect and them in comeback mode. We can't ignore that. He finishes week 6 loss to Atlanta with 7 targets, 5 catches, 49 receiving yards, all career highs. Okay, so We did it. We got through. Let's talk about our top 10 overall. And this is a tough one this week. And again, this is a weird week. So I could have had like 15 guys in the top 10. So we're going to give some honorable mentions, and we're going to mention a few extra guys this week. And if you want to see my waiver wire column, make sure you're checking it out over at playerprofiler.com. It's free every single week. Check it out. It definitely helps our site for you to come and read that article, and it helps me as well. And make sure you're checking out all of my podcasts and videos, and make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us a lot. Ty Chandler, my number one addition this week. You get at least a start with Ty Chandler. You get a mid RB2 with upside in a two-way ability in this offense. Number two addition, Tyler Allgeier. Tyler Allgeier, we want to value him. His contingent upside is massive. We're thinking long-term. But again, this is kind of a flat tier here. Isaac Orendo, I have at 3. So I'm aggressive with him, thinking Jordan Mason. I'm sort of rolling the dice on this one. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you can change based on your team needs. So Isaac Orendo, I have at 3, but it could have easily been like a Kimani Vidal, a Demario Douglas. Orendo at 3 in case he takes off and gets like a flex role in the San Francisco offense with his sort of speed. Demario Douglas comes in at number 4, my preferred long-term wide receiver addition. Michael Wilson at number 5. If you need a guy just to start this week, Michael Wilson will be a really, really fun one. Kimani Vidal at 6, and I'm probably a little low on Vidal. So, like, you could flip-flop Orendo and Vidal based on your preference, but Kimani Vidal comes in at number 6. Drake Maye at number 7. Sean Tucker and Ray Davis tied at number 8. We're going to put them both tied at number 8. Ray Davis and Sean Tucker, I don't think in every league people are going to know how to price them. So walk away with one of those two guys. Ray Davis obviously has less competition than Sean Tucker does. Ray Davis is the clear number 2, but we're also betting on maybe Rashad White misses a few more weeks. Sean Tucker might be a guy where they look to build on that. So they're tied at number 8. Blake Corum at number 9. And then at number 10, it's going to be a tie. So essentially it's Jaylen Wright, Rashad Bateman, Xavier Legette, Tyler Goodson, and Bub Means. All of those guys. We're going to read it one more time to you, okay? Ty Chandler is the number 1 addition. Tyler Allgeier, number 2. Isaac Orendo, number 3. Demario Douglas, number 4. Michael Wilson, number 5. Kimani Vidal, number 6. Drake Maye, number 7. At 8, we have a tie with Ray Davis and Sean Tucker. Number 9 is Blake Corum. Number 10, Jaylen Wright. And he is in a mixed bag with Rashad Bateman, Xavier Legette, Bub Means, and Tyler Goodson. I include Tyler Goodson because if you need a low-rostered potential flex RB2 to get you through the week with 10 PPR points, he's right there for you. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. If you like the podcast, make sure you're subscribing. We're dropping this as a podcast every single week as well. So if you want to listen to this as well, help us out and go subscribe to Player Profiler Podcast. This is Sleepers, Streamers, and Stashes. If you want to subscribe to it by itself, I'm Theo Gremminger. Check out all my work over here at Player Profiler. Also, make sure you're checking out School of Scott, my podcast with Scott Barrett, dropping every single week. And check out Sleepers, Streamers, and Stashes. That's my fantasy football sleepers show. So if you like this one, we go very deep on that one as well. That's dropping on like Fridays or Saturdays on Player Profiler YouTube and Player Profiler podcasts. Let's get it this week. Let's win these next 3 weeks. Let's grind through, win week 7, win week 8, win week 9. Let's make a push. Fantasy playoffs will be right around the corner once we get through week 9. And we will see you soon.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.